Welcome to today's deep dive. It is Thursday, April 9th, 2026, and we have a really intense stack of sources to unpack for you today.
Yeah, intense is probably the right word for it. We've got intelligence briefs, visual production notes, deep market snapshots. It's a lot.
It is a lot because, well, today our mission is to explore this crazy contrast we're seeing. On one hand, you have the tragic fragility of our physical world,
Really?
and on the other, you have this just unstoppable, democratizing acceleration of open-weight AI and custom silicon. We are living in a world moving at two radically different speeds right now.
We really are. I mean, the dissonance is honestly difficult to process sometimes. You look at the physical and geopolitical infrastructure, and it's just fracturing under immense pressure.
Yeah, and we have to start by grounding you, the listener, in that physical reality, because today, the U.S. and Israeli strikes in Tehran completely leveled the historic Rafinia synagogue.
Which is, I mean, beyond any strategic or tactical scope, it's just a profound cultural loss. It's the erasure of a rare community site, a real historical anchor for the Jewish community in that area. It hits hard on a purely human level.
Exactly. We're just reporting what's in the briefs here, but it's clear the instability is entirely systemic at this point. I mean, that ceasefire in Lebanon, the one Pakistan brokered,
Right, yeah.
it collapsed after a single day. And the intel briefs note heavy Israeli strikes hitting Beirut's Corniche al-Mazra neighborhood today, with reports of hundreds killed.
And, the economic ripple effects of all this are hitting instantly. President Trump just announced 50% tariffs on imports from any country supplying Iran with weapons, so specifically targeting China and Russia.
It's cascading everywhere. NPR just published an analysis saying U.S. war goals are, quote, mostly unmet. And then Jamie Dimon used his annual J.P. Morgan letter to warn about severe economic fallout. Global markets are officially sitting in extreme fear right now.
Yeah, the sentiment index is just completely tanked.
So looking at all these physical systems, the supply chains, borders, trade agreements, it kind of feels like we're watching humanity try to build a skyscraper while the tectonic plates underneath are actively shifting.
Oh, I like that analogy. That's exactly it. The physical ground is giving way, and, well, that's exactly why the global tech community is rushing to build resilient, decentralized digital tools.
So distributing the intelligence to survive the physical fracture.
Exactly. When you're isolated by conflict zones or massive 50% tariffs, relying on a centralized server farm in one specific geopolitical region is a huge liability. And that perfectly explains a massive shift happening in the AI markets right now.
Okay, let's pivot to that, because the strongest signal in our stack today comes from the prediction markets regarding DeepSeek V4.
Yeah, the manifold markets. This is huge.
Right, so manifold prediction markets are now pricing the release of DeepSeek V4 in April at a staggering 94% probability.
Which is wild because earlier this week it was hovering at, 84%?
Yeah, 84%. And just for context, the prediction for GPT 5.5 launching in April is trailing behind at an 88% probability.
We really need to lean into what that 94% signal actually means.
Yeah.
Because in prediction markets, a 94% confidence interval isn't just like a speculative guess.
Right, it means it's basically a sure thing.
Exactly. It's the market signaling that the code is finalized, the models are trained, and everyone is just waiting for the press release. The open weight race is no longer a question of if, it is entirely a question of when.
And I want to clarify why this specific turning point matters for you listening. Because it's not just a routine tech update. DeepSeek V4 is open weight.
Which is the great equalizer here.
Right. It means the core architecture, the billions of parameters, they are available for anyone to download, modify, and run locally. You don't need to pay a giant Silicon Valley corporation for API access.
And that ties back to the geopolitical fragmentation we were just talking about. The Hugging Face Spring 2026 report we reviewed shows this massive surge in geographic diversity among open source contributors.
Specifically from China and the Middle East, right?
Yes, because think about it. If you're a developer in a region hit by massive tariffs or a collapsing banking system, paying an American tech company for server access might literally be impossible.
Yeah, and you're locked out.
But open-weight intelligence bypasses those physical borders completely. It democratizes access to state-of-the-art AI for anyone with an internet connection.
Okay, but let's unpack this a bit, because the sheer volume of these releases is getting a little absurd.
Oh, it's a flood.
The briefs showed that in the first week of April alone, we got 8 distinct model drops in 7 days.
8 models, yeah.
You had Anthropic's Claude Mythos, Zippu's GLM 5.1, Google's Gemma 4, and the costs are all over the place, from free if you self-host to, $125 per $1 million output tokens for the premium closed models.
Which, just for perspective, a token is roughly 3/4 of a word. So $125 is a serious premium just to spit out a few hundred pages of text.
So here's my question. If we're getting 8 models a week, how do developers even know which one to use? I mean, aren't the standard benchmarks basically broken at this point?
Yes, they are entirely broken. The developer community is actually sounding the alarm on this. Evaluating these models has become nearly impossible.
Because of how they're trained, right?
Exactly. It's a problem called training data contamination. You have to remember how these massive models learn. They scrape colossal chunks of the internet.
Right.
And over the last year, a lot of the standardized tests, the coding challenges, the logic puzzles used to benchmark AI, they've leaked all over GitHub, Reddit, and various forums.
Oh, wow. So the AI just scrapes the test questions during its training phase. By the time they evaluate it, it's basically mathematically memorized the answer key.
Exactly. The models overfit to the test sets. So they look like they have this incredible advanced reasoning on the benchmark.
Yeah.
But when you deploy them in the real world on a novel problem,
It just fall apart. The intelligence collapses.
Precisely. And this is why developer publications, like SearchCans, are advising this radical shift. They're saying, stop relying on one single model. You need a model portfolio strategy.
A model portfolio, like dynamically swapping between them, like managing stocks and bonds.
That's the exact logic. Since no single benchmark tells the truth anymore, businesses are building routing systems that dynamically swap LLMs in real time based on the specific task, the cost, and the latency.
That makes sense in theory, but, I mean, if we're abandoning the idea of one know-it-all AI, how does a normal business actually do this? You can't just hire an army of engineers to juggle APIs all day.
No, you can't. Which is why we are seeing a totally new layer of enterprise workflow tools emerging. And honestly, this is why OpenAI is pivoting so hard right now.
Right, the enterprise pivot.
Yeah, they're shifting resources away from consumer chatbots, the standard website you go to and type a question, and pushing deeply into enterprise integration. The future isn't a destination. It's AI embedded invisibly into your daily workflow.
Okay, so let's look at the tools doing this on the ground, because our sources highlight 4 specific ones. The first is Zed Editor.
Yeah, Zed is a great example of the portfolio strategy in action.
It's a lightweight IDE, a coding environment, and it lets developers seamlessly swap between Claude, GPT, and Gemini mid-task.
And the key there is latency. Traditional development environments lag if you try to integrate multiple AI calls. But Zed acts like a high-speed switchboard.
So it's no longer about hiring one know-it-all AI that might hallucinate. It's about having a team of specialized digital interns, one for coding, one for email, one for memory.
Exactly. Like, if a coder knows Claude is better at refactoring legacy code today, they route the prompt to Claude. If they hit a bug where Gemini has the edge, they toggle over instantly.
What about non-technical users, though? Because the tool Glide really caught my eye here.
Oh, Glide is fascinating. It's a zero-code app creation.
Right. It lets you point an AI at a standard spreadsheet, like an Airtable or Google Sheet, and the AI just generates a fully working internal app, no coding required.
It removes so much systemic friction. Say you run a warehouse and need a custom inventory tracker. Usually you draft requirements, hire front-end and back-end engineers, and wait months. Now the manager just describes the workflow, and the AI translates the raw data into an interface.
It turns everyone into a product manager. And we're seeing this hyper-specialization in email, too. Superhuman is charging $30 a month for AI email triage.
Right, and it doesn't just draft replies.
No, it parses your entire inbox into priority lanes.
Yeah.
It mathematically categorizes what's urgent from key stakeholders and what's just background noise.
Which is the perfect example of a narrow, optimized model. Right. Superhuman isn't trying to write a Python script or a novel.
Yeah.
Its entire parameter weighting is dedicated to the hierarchy of human communication.
But wait, all these tools, the email triage, the code editor, the app builder, don't they expose the biggest flaw in all of this? Amnesia.
Yes, the context switching problem.
Right. If I have a breakthrough idea in Zed Editor on Monday, my superhuman email AI has no idea about it on Thursday. They're totally isolated silos.
And that fragmentation of context has been the hard ceiling on AI productivity. Which brings us to the fourth tool, MemSync.
MemSync, a shared AI memory layer across apps.
Exactly. It's a privacy-focused layer that stops tools from losing context. But the technical mechanics behind it are what make it possible.
How does it even work without rereading every single thing I've ever typed? That would cost a fortune in token fees.
It relies on a continuous vector database running in the background. instead of feeding your whole history into a massive prompt window every time, which, yeah, would be astronomically expensive. MemSync compresses your daily actions into mathematical representations called vectors.
So it's just searching the math.
Right. When you interact with an AI in any app, the system instantly queries that vector database and retrieves only the highly relevant context from your past.
Wow. So it transforms the AI from like this brilliant but forgetful oracle into a persistent colleague who actually remembers what we talked about 3 weeks ago?
Exactly. It's a massive leap in utility. But here's the catch to power. These specialized, persistent AI workflows for billions of users simultaneously, you can't rely on off-the-shelf hardware.
Standard GPUs can't handle it.
No. Running continuous background context requires very specific power constraints and memory bandwidth. You need custom silicon.
Which brings us to the hardware and neuroscience convergence, the concrete culmination of today's deep dive. Because when you look at who is solving this hardware bottleneck, it all points to Meta.
Meta has been executing so quietly, but so aggressively.
The Intel briefs show they have successfully shipped 4 generations of their custom MTIA chips, the Meta Training and Inference Accelerator, in just 2 years.
We really need to pause on that timeline. 4 generations of custom silicon in 24 months defies the conventional laws of hardware engineering.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. 4 custom chips in 2 years is literal light speed in silicon development. I mean, usually the tape-out phase alone takes months or years.
Oh, easily.
Where they send the 3D architecture to a foundry like TSMC to be printed on wafers. You have billions of transistors. If there's a flaw, you can't just send a software patch. You throw away millions of dollars and start over.
But Meta has effectively built a pipeline that lets them iterate physical silicon at the speed of software. They are designing these chips specifically for the inference loads of their own internal features across Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram.
But are they just trying to power Instagram recommendations? Or are they laying the physical tracks to reverse engineer human perception? Because they just unveiled the Tribe V2 brain prediction model.
That's the aha moment right there. Meta isn't just building faster calculators.
Right. Let's explain Tribe V2 because it builds on the Algonauts 2025 challenge.
Yes. For those of you listening who aren't familiar, Algonauts was this massive scientific initiative. Researchers used fMRI data, so scans tracking actual blood flow in the human brain while people looked at different images.
So they were tracking exactly which parts of the visual cortex fired up when looking at a specific picture.
Exactly. And the challenge was to build an AI that could learn the mathematical relationship between the pixels of a photograph and that biological blood flow response.
Translating biology into a predictive algorithm.
Right. And Meta took that foundational research and scaled it. Tribe V2 is their first foundation model explicitly trained to map neural activity patterns across multiple senses, not just sight. It's designed to predict how the brain processes sights, sounds, and language neurologically.
Wait, really? So we are moving from an AI that just guesses the next word in a sentence based on statistics to an AI that literally understands the biological pathways of human perception.
Yes. It's about communication efficiency. Think about it. If your AI natively understands the cognitive pathways of human using it, you can radically optimize how it delivers information.
Oh, wow. So you don't need some bloated 10 trillion parameter model struggling to guess what I want.
Exactly. If you can mathematically predict how a human will neurologically process a generated interface or synthesized speech, you build an AI that thinks in a format highly compatible with biological perception.
And because Meta controls the physical hardware, these MTIA chips they're pumping out every 6 months, they can design the silicon to run these specific neuroscience models at maximum efficiency.
The vertical integration is total. From the physical transistors on the server rack, all the way to the algorithm predicting your brain's blood flow. It is the literal convergence of hardware and neuroscience.
That brings our opening contrast into such sharp focus. You look at the physical world, the supply chains, the trade alliances, the architectural history of these cities, and those tectonic plates are fracturing.
Fracturing badly.
But in the digital space, companies are building entirely new foundations to bypass that chaos. They are fabricating custom silicon to escape general hardware limits and mapping human neuroscience to bypass clumsy text interfaces.
The barrier between human intent and digital execution is vanishing. When you combine MemSync's persistent memory with a model like Tribe V2 that understands biological processing, the need to type specific commands into a little text box is going to look incredibly archaic very soon.
So let's tie all these threads together for you listening. We started today grounded in the tragic realities of the physical world, the cultural loss of the Rafinha synagogue, the collapsing ceasefires, and global markets bracing for 50% tariffs.
Right.
But rising out of that instability, we explored the massive shift toward decentralized, democratized intelligence. We've got prediction markets hitting 94% certainty on DeepSeek V4.
A huge turning point.
We saw how developers are navigating broken benchmarks with dynamic portfolios, using workflow tools like Zeditor and MemSync. And finally, we tracked that trajectory to Meta, where custom MTIA chip velocity is converging with the biological mapping of the Tribe V2 brain model.
It really shows how adaptation to physical instability is driving us toward systems that conform to human cognition, instead of making humans learn the language of machines.
Exactly. Which leaves me with a final thought, and I want to leave this with you to explore on your own. We've unpacked how MemSync is giving AI a persistent background memory layer. And we've detailed how Meta's Tribe V2 is learning to predict the brain's neurological response to language and sight.
Right. So if you combine a machine that never forgets your context with a machine that perfectly predicts your biological perception, how long until your enterprise tools aren't just reacting to your commands, but actually predicting your cognitive needs before you even realize you have them?
I mean, the very definition of a user interface is about to change.
It really is. Well, thank you for taking the time to get well informed with us today. We know the information landscape is overwhelming right now, and we appreciate you trusting us to help extract the signal from the noise. Stay curious, keep exploring the mechanisms behind the headlines, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.